So if you've read the news during the last week or so, chances are you've been following the absolutely hilarious dumpster fire that is Elon Musk's Twitter purchase. And if you haven't, here's a quick recap. Elon Musk bought Twitter for a whopping $44 billion back in March 2022. He initially stated that he wanted to solve the bot problem and improve free speech in the platform, because he felt that Twitter's moderators were unjustly censoring its users. The important thing to note is that Elon waived the due diligence period that is usually given to the buyer for such a big purchase, and really wanted to proceed with the deal as soon as possible. However, after the deal was finalized, Elon suddenly got cold feet and wanted to back out from the purchase, stating a huge number of bots on the platform as his reason for backing out. The very thing that he allegedly wanted to fix after buying Twitter, and also the thing that would have definitely come out during the due diligence period, which Elon refused. After a bit of legal back and forth, Elon was forced to go forward with the deal and posted a hilarious video of him entering the Twitter HQ building with the sink, followed by this tweet: "Comedy is now legal on Twitter."
Foreshadowing is a literary technique in fiction and drama.
After firing 75% of the moderation team and getting in trouble with the advertisers, who weren't crazy about having their ass displayed next to racial slurs and trad wife wojacks, Elon came up with a new way to make Twitter profitable: just make the checkmarks paid. So now, instead of having to undergo the usual human review process to get a checkmark, you just have to pay $8 a month and enjoy the shiny blue circle next to your name. Now, just to clarify, the blue checkmarks were introduced on Twitter as a way to prevent scammers and trolls from impersonating politicians, celebrities, and other famous people. For instance, if you saw a blue checkmark next to Avril Lavigne, you would know that this is the actual Avril Lavigne tweeting, or her manager, and not some kind of a random fan account. By removing the human verification process and making the checkmark available for everybody for just $8, Elon basically opened the floodgates for such bangers as, "We'll be offering 10,000 vehicles to support the Ukrainian military. Our cars are the most advanced explosive devices on the market. We've overthrown the government of Brazil. We apologize to those who have been served a misleading message from a fake Chiquita account. We have not overthrown a government since 1954. And of course, this tweet from an American pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly: "We're excited to announce insulin is free now," which allegedly went so viral it cost the company billions of dollars in stocks. Unfortunately, the comedy did not stay legal for very long, and Twitter Blue had to be shut down following the outrage from the companies whose accounts were impersonated. At about the same time, Twitter's SISO, Chief Privacy Officer, and Chief Compliance Officer all resigned, and according to an internal memo, the developers were told to self-certify their code to be compliant with the FTC requirements and other laws. "Just watch a few episodes of Better Call Saul and you'll be fine," said the former compliance officer. Nah, I'm just kidding, they didn't say that. Or maybe they did? Who knows? The only thing we know for sure is that the attorney for the company's privacy team strongly suggested that the employees get whistleblower protection, which is a great sign. Last thing I've heard, Twitter was running the dev build of the website in production, and when The Verge tried to contact Twitter to get a comment for an article, they discovered that Twitter does not have a communications department anymore. At the same time, a lot of people slowly realized that they've had enough of Musk's antics and started leaving Twitter for Mastodon. Now, in case you're not familiar with Mastodon, it's a free and open source Twitter alternative, which was kind of niche up until a month ago, but suddenly gained 1 million users after the Musk's purchase of Twitter. At a first glance, Mastodon is very similar to Twitter. You have a timeline with tweets, or toots as they're called here, and you can like, retweet, and reply. The interface is pretty similar. However, unlike Twitter, Mastodon is decentralized. Instead of just being one website, Mastodon is comprised of different instances which are then federated with each other. Anyone can host an instance, and your instance can have any kind of rules, limitations, beliefs, and politics. You're not limited to some kind of a centralized TOS. Naturally, because of that, there are also all kinds of nasty instances dedicated to harassing, trolling, and insulting other members, Nazi and fascist instances, and also just instances where anything goes, with no moderation whatsoever. If you don't want to interact with the users from a specific instance, you can always block it so that nobody from that instance can interact with you. And if you're an instance admin, you can also do the same thing on the instance level. That's called defederation. If this sounds a little bit complicated, that's because it is. Because of the whole open source and decentralized thing, many people doubt that Mastodon will become the next Twitter. And here's my hot take. That's okay, because we don't actually need the next Twitter. After the cascade of Twitter news last month, many people justifiably said, well, Twitter was a dumpster fire long before Elon Musk bought it. And even though Elon pretty much turned it from a dumpster fire into a dumpster inferno, they're mostly correct. Using Twitter has always been a universally awful and toxic experience. If you ever used Twitter, you probably experienced toxic interactions, useless bickering, attention-seeking, brain-dead takes, and people asserting the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your life with the confidence of a mathematician saying 2 + 2 = 4. And you've probably seen this exact interaction play out in thousands of variations. But all of this is not just an unexpected side effect of Twitter's design. Rather, I think Twitter was designed to deliberately encourage toxic behavior in order to drive engagement and, as a result, ad revenue. For instance, the 280 symbol character limit makes sure that it's impossible to have any kind of productive or nuanced conversation about a complex subject. Yes, there are threads, but they're often unintuitive and the individual parts of a thread are often buried under people's replies. You might have also noticed that the most controversial replies are also the ones that are displayed on top. Twitter has introduced a function to hide some replies to your tweets, but that basically has the opposite effect. Every time you see this icon, you just can't help but click on it out of curiosity. What is so terrible that the person had to hide it? So basically, Twitter makes sure that you are exposed to the controversial content as often as possible, because that provokes emotions, and emotions of any kind, negative or positive, make you more likely to stay on the platform and feed the ad revenue. And then there are the typical social media dark patterns that aren't unique to Twitter but are still designed to lure you in and keep you on the platform for as long as possible. The number of likes, comments, and reposts are displayed front and center under every tweet, which primes your brain to judge the content of the tweet as good or bad before you've even read it. And one very popular way to see who won an argument on Twitter is ratio. Basically, you comment ratio under someone's tweet, and if your reply gets more likes than the original tweet, congratulations, you have ratioed them. Now, I want to emphasize that even though all the things that I just mentioned are universally hated, and almost everyone agrees that Twitter would be a much better platform without them, they're also a crucial part of Twitter and play a major role in the fact that people are still drawn to it, despite allegedly hating the experience. In a way, it's kind of like an abusive relationship. Mastodon, on the other hand, is a very different beast. Instead of a 280 symbol character limit, you have 5,000. Instead of likes and ratios driving the engagement, the number of likes and reposts are hidden, so you'll actually have to read the post to form an opinion on it. Instead of the blockchain machine learning AI algorithm deciding what replies and posts you see, everything is just displayed in a chronological order, like it's supposed to be. All of those choices are deliberate. A user once submitted a GitHub issue because they didn't like the fact that you can't see the number of likes and reposts. The developer's response was that it's a feature, not a bug. Mastodon is not trying to be the open source Twitter clone because its authors don't think that Twitter is worth replicating. The general principle of both platforms is the same, an internet public square where people can share their thoughts in relatively short posts. And I think that in and of itself, it's good and useful to have something like that on the internet. However, Twitter as a big and centralized platform also has huge operational costs and thus has to resort to dirty tricks to keep itself profitable, which it failed to do. In 16 years of its existence, Twitter never managed to turn a profit. Most of Twitter's profit comes from running ads on the timeline, and in order to stay advertiser-friendly, all content on the platform has to be moderated. With a platform that size, this means that Twitter has to invest a lot into human moderators as well as automated moderation tools, and those things aren't cheap. Mastodon, on the other hand, doesn't have those problems. Even the largest Mastodon instance, Mastodon.social, has a relatively small user base, so running and moderating a small instance for you and your friends is relatively cheap. A lot of instances also have Patreon and Libera Pay accounts, where the members can chip in to cover these server costs. Moderation is also way easier, since admins only need to moderate their particular instance. Every instance is like a little community with its own vibe and its own rules, so you can basically pick and choose your instance depending on your views. Now that's not to say that running a Mastodon instance is a breeze. Mastodon Social, for instance, has been struggling with poor performance ever since the Musk takeover, as hundreds and thousands of users flock to Mastodon. It's gotten better since, but if Mastodon keeps gaining popularity, Mastodon Social will either need to find a way to be profitable in order to invest into beefier server infrastructure or stop being the default instance, which will in turn force potential users to choose out of thousands of different instances. At the same time, joining a smaller instance always comes with the risk that the admin will eventually close it because they want to focus on something else in life or just tired of running it. For instance, Mastodon.technology, the instance that I was on up until early November, is actually closing due to a personal tragedy in admin's family. And that wasn't a small niche instance. So yes, even though Mastodon has a lot of issues and its decentralized nature comes with its own challenges, I think that most of those things are growing pains. Yes, the way that Mastodon is built is inherently more complex for the end user than the mainstream social media, but it also presents a way for the community to shoulder the burden of content moderation, monetization, and server infrastructure. And I think that this community-driven model is much more sustainable in the long run than social media monoliths like Twitter. Is Mastodon ever going to become as big as Twitter? Maybe not, but that's okay. This might sound a bit cheesy, but instead of becoming the new Twitter, Mastodon users are trying to create a better social media. A social media that's not driven by greed or profit or attention, but instead just gives people a decentralized, sustainable, and scalable platform to communicate with each other online, which is what social media is supposed to do in the first place. Now, there are many things that I could talk about in this video. For instance, the fact that Mastodon is part of Fediverse project, which includes other social media platforms like PeerTube, Pleroma, Write Freely, Funkwhale, and others. And they all use the same protocol called ActivityPub to communicate with each other. But I don't want to drag this video out longer than necessary. I just wanted to tell you guys about Mastodon and what I think about it, and hopefully my rant was at least entertaining. So that's gonna be it for this video. If you want to, you can also follow me on Mastodon at NotTheBee at TiltZone, and as usual, I would like to thank my patrons: James Uppington, Mitchell Valentino, Carlos Banilla, David Love, Catherine DC, Primus, Remus Iliesh, Robots Dream of Crypto, and everyone else supports this channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.